Welcome to Mikes and Mayhem with Jenna Wren and Maddie Morrow.
I'm Jenna, son of Arathorn and heir to the throne of Gondor.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm Maddie, and I'm calling about your car's extended warranty.
Oh, I'm gonna hang up on you.
Oh, sorry, guys. That's the end of the video.
Well, we have mics, and as always, we're here to bring you unhinged mayhem.
Yes, and this video is going to be pretty mayhemy because we are going to be discussing the two-part finale of Doctor Who, both The Legend of Ruby Sunday and Empire of Death. And neither of us took notes, so this is going to be us just spewing our thoughts and feelings about these episodes.
Yeah, off the cuff. I mean, it kind of has to be done like that because it was a bit of a chaotic two-parter. And obviously, we will be getting into spoilers. We're going to discuss the plot of both episodes. So if you have not seen the finale or if you haven't seen The Legend of Ruby Sunday, save this video. Do not watch it. You don't want to be spoiled. And come back to us once you have.
Yes, because it was a doozy of a two-parter, that's for sure. We were given answers to questions and then left with more questions. it it I don't even know where to start. Where do we even start with this? Like it was
All
I
right.
have so many thoughts and feelings that I don't know where to begin.
So I'm just gonna go with an overall critique question mark. So the Legend of Ruby Sunday was like high octane, like what is going on? It was super exciting. It ended with this massive reveal of this massive villain who was gonna, destroy everything and who has been being built up to this whole time. And then the Empire of Death, picks right up on those heels. And I'm gonna be honest, I think it kind of fell flat, and I'm not super critical of things. Like I find enjoyment in most things. I'm easily entertained. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh well, Star Wars didn't do X, Y, and Z, so now I hate it. Like no, the finale of Doctor Who, I don't think it really delivered with the build up beforehand. So I'll start there.
Yeah, so if you have been watching our reviews of each of these episodes, Jenna and I have been talking about these themes with Ruby throughout every single episode. We have seen like music has played a huge role in each episode. Um and like the parental bond or something related to children, that sort of a thing. And we kind of knew that the whole children thing was going to play a part because the whole thing was about Ruby not knowing who her biological mother was. And then in the earlier episodes when, the doctor goes to 2004, the figure turns around and points, and that's like, why is she pointing at me? What is going on? What is happening? And so all of these things happening to the doctor and to Ruby, it's been like, okay, well, it's got to be connected to Ruby somehow, some way. Something is going after them because of who Ruby is, right? But that wasn't it was the case, but not really. I will say it was really cool to see a classic villain being brought back into the series in Sutek. Um, and then to have a little snippet of the episode kind of playing in the background during the Empire of Death. So you could kind of see, for those of you who didn't watch the Temple of Geek explanation of who Sutek is, there were like 40,000 of you who did watch it. So it's possible some of you who are watching us watched that video. So if you didn't get the explanation of who Sutek was, it kind of gave you an idea in the Empire of Death of, oh, the doctor has come into contact with this creature before and it was a huge struggle and it was this, god of death who wanted to destroy everything, right? um but the Ruby reveal, I guess, the Ruby like explanation was way different than what I was expecting and hoping for.
Yeah, it was really disappointing, I'm not gonna lie. Like, they have been building this up the whole season just for it to turn out to be absolutely nothing. Like, Ruby's mom is just some chick, like, some girl who was a teenager when she had her and abandoned her. So, I mean, yeah, I get it. Like, they're trying to make a point that, "Oh, you don't have to be special to be special," but, Doctor Who is about these big, you know, uh, anachronistic things that happen, and I think that the buildup really didn't pay off, and it didn't, like, tie into what they've been showing. Like, you have this whole thing with why can Ruby make it snow every time she thinks about that day or her adoption? Like, why is this music from the day that she was abandoned continually coming back? And for it to all be that the mother was a human doesn't make sense why these things keep happening around her. So, I think that it was kind of I think that they made too much of a mystery around her, and then just to make it be nothing. Unless the father is gonna come into play in season 2. That's the other thing I thought of. Like, "Oh, well, her mother's nobody," and that was like everybody was freaking out over who the mother is, but, another theme this season has been the fact that there's big twists. So, could the twist be at the very end when she said, "Oh, we're gonna go find my father," is he gonna now be the one that they've had to, that has a big story surrounding him? I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen there.
Yeah, I was hoping for some more clarity on the snow stuff as well. I mean, I guess the explanation could be because, you had the time vortex issue with Sutek being attached to the TARDIS this whole time, and maybe things were like bleeding in from memories and things like that. So it's possible that that's why it snowed every time Ruby was reminiscing or, thinking about like the day of her birth and the video and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I thought. Um,
Maybe, yeah, that
but
kind of makes sense, but what doesn't make sense also is that you have this whole thing this season of the woman points, and then at the end, it turns out she's pointing at a street sign. Makes no sense because there was no one around to see. Why would she have just pointed at a street sign? Like, that was a little really far-fetched for me.
Well, the street sign thing changed, remember? So in the first video that we see of Ruby's mom dropping her off at the church, she just walks away. But then the doctor shows up, um, and that's when she points. And then you see in the tape, oh my gosh, the tape changed because now she's pointing. Well, what is she pointing at? I was hoping she was going to point at Sutek. Like, that was what I thought. Like, I was like, oh, maybe she caught on to seeing Sutek and maybe that's how they're connected. Maybe she like realized that something was wrong or there was a big scary something. Or maybe it was more of like a, you're going to take care of my daughter point at whoever was standing there or something to that effect. Um, but yeah, for her to just point at a street sign to name her child, I will say this, I do love the memes coming out of these episodes, with like
Right.
how people are gonna start naming their children as we're just gonna start pointing at street signs.
Right, and hope, like, a stranger on the street sees it, and, like, so the logic there is not only would this girl hope that the doctor would see what she's pointing at, but that this guy is gonna go back to the child. Like, it's a whole thing you could really get into. But yeah, I'm just gonna point to a street sign, and people are gonna be like, "Why is your baby name Yield?"
Yeah, it did feel a little far-fetched. I do like I did love, the acting in both of these episodes. I forgive me, I forgot the actor who plays Mel, her name, but she is superb. I love to see her over and over again. It was great to see Rose, even though Rose like really had no tie to the plot. She was just there, which was kind of fun to see her, and then like 15 asking how her uncle is doing, I thought was really cute.
Oh,
Um,
so cute.
that was really sweet, but I feel like that's kind of the only reason why she was there was to, like, give us a little reference to what 14 was up to, um, but, it was, you know, despite the letdown that we felt with the reveal of who Ruby's mom was, it was still such an emotional 2 episodes, I was crying like 10 minutes into Empire of Death. Um, and since this is our last Doctor Who, video, it would not be a Doctor Who review video without me saying how much Ncuti's acting amazes me. Um, but like the minute he shows any sort of sadness, I'm just like,
He has those, like, puppy dog eyes, and the way he cries is just ridiculous, like, he gets, like, the tear, and he's I cannot sing this man's praises enough, like, he is unbelievable, he's really I don't necessarily know what my expectations were when he was cast, like, I knew him from Sex Education, and, he's really good on that, but obviously I knew this was gonna be a completely different role, and I have never seen him in anything else, so I really didn't know what we were gonna get. He's just so talented. I love him. His acting is so great, and he's so good with the I guess you could say like the classic characters, like Mel. He was so good with Mel and with Kate. Maddie can attest to the meltdown I had in the beginning of the Empire of Death.
yes. Oh my gosh. I'm pretty sure most of us thought this, but it felt very Thanos-y as Sutek's Dust of Death was like destroying everyone. But honestly, I feel like I liked this better than Thanos' snap. I feel like it was dealt with in a much better way than Marvel dealt
Yeah.
with, losing half the population, because this was really everyone. This took out the universe really. Um, anywhere the Doctor had touched down was dying. Um, but it was really clever to do the death plus death equals life thing. I thought that was really cool. Um, you know, I got really upset at first. I was like, "Oh no, Sutek got to Mel." And then I watched the Doctor, and it's crazy because like you would know, like the Doctor knew that Mel was, not herself, but it was just the subtle expressions in Shuti's face that like changed, and you're like, ah, you do see it, you do see it. And it was like, again, with the acting, it was just enough of a change in his face for you to go, okay, he sees what I'm seeing. Like, okay.
I think that's also when I mean, I knew that they were gonna reverse everything because you can't have a show if everyone and everything is dead, like, they're gonna reverse it. It's funny because I did text Maddie, Maddie had seen the episode already, and I watched it later in the day, and I was like, "This is giving Thanos," 'cause
Yep.
it really was, but, I so when Kate in the very beginning, when Kate and everybody in unit dusted away, like, I was so upset, and Kate's was I love her. I love that character, and I was so emotional when she got on and she knows, like, she's gonna die, and she says, "This is Kate Lethbridge Stewart signing off," or whatever she said to the Doctor, and I was like, "You know what? This legitimately could be a death. They could kill Kate off, and it would suck, and I'd be really, really mad." But I wasn't, like that wasn't the point where I was like, "Oh, they're gonna reverse everything," but obviously when like the dust spread and the whole universe died, but when Mel wasn't Mel, I was like, okay, now this is not they're not gonna let Mel go this way. Like she's not a classic companion just to be brought on and taken out this way. So I was upset, but I was kind of like, okay, I feel okay now because he's gonna fix everything. He's gonna fix it all.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you say that because I felt the same way. I was like, Kate could legitimately die. Like, this could be the end of Kate. Like, she has been in a ton of episodes. She's been an important character, a part of unit. Like, this could legitimately be her end, and the baton gets passed to someone. But then again, like Jenna said, when we saw the spread taking over, and then Rose died, and I was like, okay, well, they wouldn't like it. I feel like they wouldn't have gotten rid of Rose too. But then I was like, but you never know, because like she's not necessarily part of the story anymore because she was part of 14's. But then I feel like 14 would be real mad. But of course 14 died because
Right.
he was in this mess, right? um but Yeah, it was when Mel was in that, like, remembered TARDIS, which we need to talk about. We need
Oh
to talk about that
gosh.
remembered TARDIS. When she was in the TARDIS and Sutek was in her head, I was like, "Okay, yeah, they're everyone's gonna come back to life, including Kate. Everything's gonna be fine."
Yeah, we drew the line at Mel. Everybody knows it's not going past that. Like, she's been on the show for what, like 50 years or something crazy like that? That was the line that I knew was not gonna get crossed.
Right.
And I feel like with, Rose, I know, like, she was really part of the specials, and she's kinda been thrown in for just like, "Oh, there's Rose," like, just like a little nod. But I wouldn't be surprised if she wound up playing a bigger role in the future because they got an actress who's very popular and the character itself is very interconnected to the whole Doctor Who lore. That I wouldn't be surprised if down the road she became a companion or she played a bigger role. So I was a little like, oh, okay, what are they? Rose? All right, like this is going crazy. But yeah, Mel was the line that I knew they wouldn't pass. She's too iconic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It would be cool to see Rose some more. It would be really cool, even if she was in just, an episode or 2 here and there, kinda like she was this time. Um, but that okay, so that remembered TARDIS was really clever, was really cool to see bits and pieces of, different TARDISes. I never know the plural of TARDIS.
Tardai.
Tardai, TARDISes, is it
Tortoise.
T-I
I like
TARDISes
that.
with an ES at the end, TARDISes.
I like that one. I like that one.
Yeah. So it was really fun to see like the sixth doctor's coat as like Mel is like looking at it, because that was something of the TARDIS she remembered, and for it to be like a lot smaller than like an actual TARDIS. So it was kind of like they were in a shed this time around. And for the three of them to be working together to fly it was really, really fun to see. I always love when the doctor has multiple companions, especially when it comes to like working things out when things get really dangerous. So he has like multiple, opinions and people to talk to and helpers really to like fly the TARDIS.
Right, and like I mean, I'm forgetting the title, but the one with the 10th Doctor where it's like Jack and Rose and Donna and all of them were in the TARDIS flying the TARDIS. Like, that's so much
Mhm.
fun. Yeah, so I enjoyed seeing that, and I enjoyed that it was kind of like, the Remembered TARDIS was kind of it was very, like, 70s vibes. It was very, like, played into the 4th Doctor having been the Doctor to, fight Sutekh, so it kinda, like, played into that and paid homage to that. Um, but speaking of the Doctor and Sutekh, I did think the end was I mean, I really liked how they did, like you said, the life I mean, death plus death equals life. But, like, the Doctor his previous plan to get rid of Sutekh was throwing him into the time vortex, and it obviously didn't work, and then this one threw him into the time vortex too. I'm like, "Wait a minute, that didn't work last time. Is it gonna work this time?"
Maybe it's like a repeated um throwing of someone into the time vortex, but I don't know what the difference was between what he did with the fourth doctor versus now. It's possible it was different and we just need to like actually go back and watch and see what happened with Sutek with and for but yeah, it wouldn't it couldn't have been the same. Like there's no like I don't think it was exactly the same. Um and then it kind of like begs the question of like, okay, well, if he was cloaking, well, Hasutek was using the cloaking mechanism to hide on the TARDIS, right? And so there's a lot of jokes going around where like, why didn't Jack Harkness see Sutek when he was like, so like, Jack, I don't know what episode it was, but he jumps onto the TARDIS and is like holding on to the outside of it as it's flying through, space and time.
So does
Um,
Clara, right? She does it too.
yeah, and so it's like, well, why didn't they see Sutek? Why weren't they aware? And it's like, okay, well, because Sutek was cloaked. Like, so obviously whoever was holding on to the TARDIS on the outside, like, would not have seen him. The memes are great. They're hilarious.
They're
But
so good, so
but
good.
but he, used the chameleon circuit so he couldn't be seen.
Which is so funny because it's been like how many years now, like technically in canon of Sutek just like taking a ride on the TARDIS. He's been there this whole time, which is funny. Like the memes of the 50th anniversary special where it's like all 13 doctors and it's all 13 TARDISes. 13 Suteks on top of all the TARDIS, the TARDISes.
Tortoises, yep.
He's just
Or
a bad
or
dog. He's a bad
I
boy.
know, I know, he was a bad dog. Or when, in Frontline, when the TARDIS gets, like, really tiny with the 12th Doctor. So did Sutek also get really tiny? Like, did he shrink too? And then which, like, did he split during the bi-generation thing when the 10th Doctor became the 14th Doctor and then the TARDIS sees, like, split?
That's a good point because if they wanted to bring Sutek back again to be like, he didn't actually defeat him, that is a really great way to tie it back in. Be like, well, there was another TARDIS. There was another portion of this being that continued to exist, which I mean, I think would be cool because I actually would have liked to have seen the Doctor fight Sutek longer than just one episode. Like I think it was he was such a big bad and such a big bad reveal that I think I would have liked to have seen a little more, kind of like when you get like the multi-arc stories of the Doctor is fighting, the angels or whatever he's up to. I would have liked to seen a little more Sutek after the build up. So who knows? Anything's possible, right?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I would have liked to see more of a fight, with Sutek, but I don't think we're gonna get more. That something just tells me that it's kind of like closed up. I will say I was a little disappointed. This is actually just really dumb, and I don't know if anyone else thought this, but when the Doctor was listing off planets that had been destroyed by Sutek, and one of them was Skaro, and so Mel was like, "The Daleks are dead." The Doctor was like, "Yeah." And then when he brought everyone back, I was low key hoping he would have been like snarky. I would have been like, "Yeah, the Daleks are back," or something, because that's like the first thing I thought was like, "Oh man, he had to bring his like mortal enemy back along with everything else." And so I was hoping for a little more like of a connection. But that's just me. I don't know. I was just hoping that it would have been, instead of more of like a passing, like, "Oh, the Daleks are dead," if it had been like, "Oh, I guess they're back."
I thought the same thing. I thought the same thing when he was, listing off the planets that are back now. I fully was waiting for Skaro is back. Damn it. Like I was really, really waiting for it. But I did like that when he brought all the planets back, that he was able to put together who that lone nomad woman who gave him the spoon was, because that was a really emotional scene. Like that hurt with like the dead baby and the bassinet. Like that was a really, really rough scene. And Ncuti yet again just like blew everybody out of the water. But I was just glad that they didn't forget about that it came back and he said, the spoon. There, she gave me the spoon. So I really like that they did that too.
Yeah, I did too. I was hoping that she was connected to them somehow when they were introducing that character, with how, like, she was forgetting and she didn't know where she was or who she was or anything like that. And then for her to not really be anyone involved with Sutek or Ruby or the Doctor, was a little bit of a letdown, but that didn't take away from how emotional that scene was. It hurt
Yeah.
so bad. I cried. There was so much crying in this episode.
I was like hoping, like when I saw the bassinet, the first thing I thought, I'm like, that baby's dead. Like I thought it right away, but then I'm like, maybe not, maybe. But then when you don't hear like any crying or there's no fussing, I was like, oh, this is rough. I was kind of like, this is gonna sound terrible, but I was kind of like happy that she died because it was like ending her suffering. Like she didn't know who she was. She didn't know who her baby was. She didn't know who her husband, well, she knew her husband. She remembered him, but she was suffering and she was all alone. And that was a really, really sad scene, but I'm glad that at the end she was brought back with her baby and she's playing with her baby. Like at least that made me happy. I hope she comes back.
I know, that was really great. Another thing that I wish they had touched more on was the 73 yards.
Okay, I was gonna just say to you, can we stop and talk about this because I don't know if I'm confused. Like, it's possible that there was so much going on. Like, and there's been so much going on this whole season, and a lot of it's interconnected that I don't know if I like just misunderstood something or I need you to explain it. But like, Ruby mentions it because he says the cloaking device goes out X amount of meters, whatever, and she goes, "Oh, it's 76, 76, right?
73.
73 yards." So I was like, okay, we got that. So anything past that would see Sutek? Is that like what I don't know. I was confused at that. What is your take on all this?
So, yeah, so the TARDIS kind of is just there, and people who walk past it like don't really notice. And so I think that if you saw it from far away, you might be like, what in the world? But then you get closer and it just you don't worry about it because it's just oh, it's just there. Okay, whatever. And you just walk on by. That's never been an issue in Doctor Who. The TARDIS has always landed in random spots, and people do not give a crap that a police call box is in the middle of modern London or in the middle of a planet that doesn't have the same technology. Like, that has never been an issue. Um, and so that continuity, I'm not super like concerned about. That doesn't really confuse me with the whole Sutek blending in. I just assume if people don't notice the TARDIS, then they don't notice Sutek. Like, that's enough for me. Like
Well, I thought
that's
was Su so my thing was this connected to Sutek? Was, like, the fact that she'd gotten far enough away from the TARDIS, so is, like, was Sutek, like, sending his version of the Susan Twist girl? Is that who that was? 76, 73 yards away from Ruby? Like, that's what I thought. Was it connected somehow that way?
So I don't think they connected what happened in 73 yards to what is happening with Sutek, because 73 yards technically didn't happen because they went back and fixed it, but Ruby kind of sort of remembered. And
They do a
so
great job fixing it because that guy still still is there,
well,
the bad
and
guy.
that but that's why I don't understand. What I don't understand is why bring it up if you're not going to do anything with it. So unless they're going to do something in season 2 with all of that,
That is something I have read as a potential, theory where this politician that is mentioned yet again, 2 times in the season, specifically as the worst person to ever happen to London, England, the world, mentioned 2 times by name. A theory I saw was, well, is he gonna turn out to be somehow like Ruby's father or something like that? Because it's not that far in the future, and Ruby's parents were only like 15 when she was born. So is this somehow gonna turn out to be now like that's why Ruby was kind of like brought into that whole shenanigans like at that. So that would be kind of interesting if that was tied in because there has to be more. There has to be more.
yeah, it's really very interesting because like the moment Ruby said 73 yards, I was like, "Oh, they're going to explain it. Oh, something like the doctor's going to be like, "Oh, what did you see?" All this stuff, but then they just left it. And so I'm like, okay, why are you bringing these things up when they're not being used in the rest of the story? And then, you know, Ruby's ending, don't get me wrong, I love it when the companions can just walk away. Like, that to me is the best possible ending you can ask for a companion in Doctor Who. But I thought, and we thought, because we've talked about this before, is we thought Ruby, was coming back for season 2. But the way that they ended this season was it was like, bye, love you, I'm gonna go find my dad, and then he leaves. And I cried because that's how it always is. I cried because it was sad and emotional and the acting was phenomenal. But it's like there's still so many things that we didn't get answered with Ruby. And while, yes, I'm very happy she found her mother, I think that's great. You know, Sutek was destroyed. This Susan person is, a real person and not just like something made up. So I was happy for her about that too. Like, the ending was mostly nice until Miss Flood, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Um, but there's still so many threads that we didn't tie up. And I'm like, okay, so is Ruby coming back in season 2 for us to figure out how she remembered 73 yards, who this politician is? Like, It
I think so. I think yeah. At first, my initial reaction was disappointment because I was like, "Oh my gosh, no! Like Ruby can't be done." This is. I was kind of. I wouldn't necessarily say disappointment. Maybe more shock. And
yeah.
I was like, "Wait a minute, this isn't." And it's very much not Doctor Who because, like Maddie said, I think the only companion that walks away is Martha. Right? Isn't Martha the only one?
Yep.
Um, and I guess maybe Jack, but I guess Jack. I don't know if that counts, but I was like, "Wait a minute, this can't be." And then I again, I saw something trolling Twitter or whatever, and it was like a video discussing like season 2 or something, and it had Millie in it. So I think like the news did confirm that she was signed on like contractually for season 2. So I just can't see that being the end of Ruby. Like it just is kind of like too open-ended, like you said.
Yeah. I mean, Graham and Ryan also walked away from 13. And they kind of were like, Graham was like, I'm too old for this. I don't want to do this anymore. And Ryan was like, oh, I'll come with you. And then they had like the circle of people who've been involved in the Doctor's life kind of a thing. And I think Yaz, I uh, so the 13th season was something.
I forgot
But
about honestly forgot about them. I forgot about the
but
13th Doctor's
um
companions.
but yeah, it I was shocked too. I was like, wait, Ruby, wait. But then you get that ominous warning from Miss Flood, who is going to be a season 2 thing because obviously she is someone. But like, yeah, I'm like, okay, lady, who are you? What are you doing here? Why do you know so much about the Doctor? At first I thought she was going to be a bad guy when she like walks over to Cherry, and was
I think
like,
she is. I think she is a bad guy.
she was like, he's here and blah blah blah, like, we're not going out, that sort of thing. But it felt like but looking back, I feel like she was warning the Cherry versus like telling her, no, you can't do this because I'm going to keep you here. Because then she was like, do you pray? Well, you're going to need it because we're all about to die. So like Miss Flood knew what was coming, but how did she know?
Right. So yes, the thing with her going to the window and saying he's coming, like I didn't take that to mean like you said, like she was holding Cherry hostage, if you will. But when she asked her about the prayer, if you go back and or read the transcript, she says, "Do you pray?" And then she says, "Because pray to your God because I was gonna come rip the gates down, and now I can't anymore," or something like that. She basically says, I was gonna mess everything up and now I'm gonna die. So she was planning something evil, and then Sutek got in the
Oh,
way. Sutek coming
that.
to spreading his dust, she knew was gonna kill her. So now whatever she had planned was out the window.
Oh, that's right.
I'm gonna find exactly what it was because it was very ominous and very scary.
At the like about the Gates thing or at the very end?
At the gates thing when she was talking to Cherry.
Oh yeah, she said she was gonna tear the gates of heaven down or something like that. Like that's what she
Oh yeah.
said. Um, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah,
Yes.
that
And then her
was and
evil Mary Poppins look at the end.
at the very end, yeah, with
Yeah.
her hood and her briefcase, like
Like, what a queen, though. What a fit that was.
I know. It looked really cool, but also like who are you? Which, we are obviously going to get her in season 2 because you're not just going to leave that ominous like this is how the Doctor's life is going to end kind of a thing. Is It's definitely going to be in the second season. And we've seen these kind of like prophecies, I guess you could say, about the Doctor plenty of times, like in Good Man Goes to War, like we've talked about, the how the Doctor has been told he's gonna die this way, this way, this way. The Doctor has, talks about Trenzalore and who kills him and how and all this stuff. And so
Or
like we've
not.
seen stuff like or not, yeah. Um, so we've seen all of these things before. And they're usually at the end of they're usually a cliffhanger. Like we don't ever get the answers when we hear these like prophecy type ominous things. So it'll definitely be a thread in season 2.
Yeah, those things tend to come back when the doctor's ready to regenerate. You know, it will be a payoff then. It will be like, oh, like he will knock 4 times, and you see that over what, like 3 seasons with David Tennant, and then it's at the very end. And same thing with Trenzalore, and they weave through the seasons, and they typically tend to come back when it's time for that specific doctor to regenerate. But what slash who do you think Mrs. Flood is? What is your theory?
I don't have one because I have no idea. I feel like she is someone the doctor has either come into contact with before or is related to someone or something that he, ended up destroying or working against or whatever in a classic episode. But I honestly, and I'm kind of glad that I have no idea. I just know that she is a big deal because she was in that first episode with 15 and Ruby, and now she's been kind of seen as like the funny old neighbor, but obviously she knew what the TARDIS was, and she was all too willing to help Ruby's family. And now she's on the roof saying that the doctor's life is going to end in terror. So
I want a scene where Cherry's like, wait, where did that mean old white lady go? She was saying some crazy stuff to me, man. Like she was saying some unhinged stuff. Um, I I I don't know either, but I feel like the way this season has gone, and I've mentioned this over and over again in every single video we've done, that this is a soft reboot, and they're bringing almost everything back to classic Who. So I would not be surprised if she was somehow part of Classic Who, maybe someone from Gallifrey. I mean, of course, I thought, could she be the Master? Like we've had Missy, could the Master would be a fun one to bring back because the Master is a classic antagonist to the Doctor. And if Russell T Davies seems to be re-explaining Doctor Who lore to new viewers, so the Master would make sense. Although I don't want it to be the Master because like don't get me wrong. I love the Master. I love every iteration of the Master. But it would be cool to see like some sort of like Gallifreyan person, or even people were saying something about like a White Guardian is somebody who's from classic lore. I don't know a lot at all about classic Who, so whatever I learn is Googling or like somebody explains it to me. Um like people were saying Romana, and I don't know anything about her. So I think she'll be someone to do with classic Who.
yeah, I'm not familiar with Romana either. I know that she's, from Gallifrey, but I think her second her second version was a good guy. So I don't know if, I mean, that's what I think. I'm just assuming things based on like the one or two clips of Romana that I've seen. But I think if they're gonna bring the Master back, it should be Ruby's dad or that politician
Oh,
guy. Like I feel like that
ooh.
politician guy being the Master would be really interesting. But it wouldn't make sense for the Doctor to go, "Oh, that guy was the worst thing to happen to London in history," and not know he's the Master, unless it's very similar to I do not remember the name of the
John
episode.
Sims,
What?
John Sims master.
The guy before him, so like the older gentleman who had the stopwatch and he didn't remember who he was, and then he opened it and realized he was the Master, and then he becomes John Sim. Yeah, that's the only way, now that I think about it, that the politician could be the Master without the Doctor knowing. But then again, we had and the Doctor didn't know that he was the Master. She had no idea, and he was just kind of vibing. So
That's happened though. I feel like with the master every time the Doctor doesn't know it's the Master. Like he didn't know Missy was the Master right away. He was like, "Who is
that's
this?"
true.
This I feel like every time. I can't remember Sasha, with Sasha's Master. Did
She
she
didn't
know?
know.
No, she
Mm-mm.
didn't. He was Oh man, that's criminal that we didn't get more of him because he was so good, and he really reminded me of John Sims on another level. Like on another I really enjoyed him, but I really like what you said about Ruby's dad. Like if Ruby's dad ties into this politician and that all ties into the Master, like that could wind up being like why everybody who encounters her keeps saying, "Oh, she's a child of that one. She's that." Like so that would kind of tie into is it because she's Time Lord even though she's human?
Yeah, that would be really interesting. And it's like I don't think Ruby's dad. I mean, I guess like if you regenerate into a younger body, you could be 15 and then like not, just be a 15-year-old and not know that you have a child, I guess. But I think if the politician guy was the master, I think that would be really interesting. I just want the master back. I just love
I love the Master.
if we're gonna be bringing in stuff from classic and new Who into this, Disney Who era, like give us the master, please.
I feel like they have to. Like if they're like you said bringing these classic elements back, I don't think there's anything more classic than the Doctor versus the Master. Like it just has to come up. And the Master always shows up and messes everything up anyway. So I uh, I just want to go back and watch now John Sims Master cuz he was something else, man.
Yeah, we also need Daleks back if we're
Yeah,
gonna
and Cybermen.
like where I feel like even in with 13's run, we had Daleks and Cybermen. In 12's run, we had Daleks and Cybermen all the way back, from when the beginning really. Like give us give us Daleks and Cybermen, please.
And I just want them to be, like, sassy again, like they were during the 10th Doctor, where they're like, "You are better at dying." Like, and they're
Yeah,
just jerks. But,
yeah.
I agree, I would love to have that back. I will say I also thought about the silence, because they mentioned something about silence falling again in this episode. They said something about, like, silence spreading or something along those lines. And I immediately thought of the silence, because they were such a cool villain. But they still scare me. They still haunt my dreams.
But I feel like the silence was more for the plots with Amy and Rory, with what was going on with like the church, with leading up to like Good Man Goes to War and Amy's baby and all that stuff. Like the silence was really meant for that. So I don't know how we would get them in this Doctor's run. But anything's possible.
Yeah, I do agree though that it has to be the two classic villains. Like you have to have Daleks and Cybermen to be Doctor Who. That would just be and all the companions have to react to the Daleks and almost die every single time.
Yes, I agree.
Oh gosh, I think I can't think of anything else that we have to add from these two episodes. Can you?
I think we touched on everything. Again, it was emotional ride for sure. But we just wish that it had certain things, and I think feel like we touched on all of our feelings.
And like to be honest, even though I was disappointed, I was very disappointed in the whole Ruby thing. Um, I still enjoyed it. Like I still, like I said, I'm extremely easy to entertain. So I did enjoy it despite like that letdown. And it's funny because the season, what has there been like 10 episodes or something? It's not very long,
9.
9. And for the most part, I've been watching it just like in my living room. And my mother is usually around and has never ever watched any Doctor Who, but has been like paying attention to this one. So last episode, she was like around too, and she was like, "Wait a minute, is he gonna be Ruby's granddaughter?" Like, and I mean, is Ruby gonna be his granddaughter? Like, she was like in on the whole thing. And then when I went to go watch it last night, she goes, "Okay, tell me who Ruby's parents are." So like everybody was hooked on it, and I went back and I said, "Oh, Ruby's parents weren't anybody," and she was like, "What?" So everybody's feeling the same, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I will say the misdirections were great. I feel like it I feel like most of us fell for the Susan Twist thing because that's actually the actress's name. That's not like
Stop.
it's her name. Like
That's her real like Christian
that's
name.
what I thought. That's what I read or was told or I saw or something. I don't remember exactly, but like that's her name. And
That's
so we
crazy.
all thought, oh, well, the Susan thing, and there's going to be a twist at the end. And like, what does this mean? And it's like, oh, no, she's just Sutek. Like,
I love
she's,
her. I love her, and I Love that they made her so likable and just down for anything, that I really hope, and again, this is something that you could go on Temple of Geek and check out. They were positing, could there be a unit spinoff? And I want a unit spinoff so bad. Look at this roster that they have now. They have Kate, they have Donna, they have Rose, they have kind of Ruby's mom, maybe. They
They have
have
Susan.
Mel, they have Susan Twist. Like, what a crew. What a crew to do a spinoff with.
Yeah, that would be really, really cool. Yeah, the misdirection was great. It was really clever. Um, my kid who watches with me did not want to watch the finale because Sutek scared him last episode. He was like, "No, I don't like this. I don't like this."
I was scared by the faces, like, that freaked
Mhm.
me out, and I'm, like, a grown adult, like, I the
Yeah.
weird, like, skeleton faces,
Mhm.
count me out, thank you.
Yeah, he was not a fan, so he just, like, kept asking me what was happening. I was like, "I'm not gonna sit here and pause it. You need to either watch or you don't watch." Like, it's
Send him the Wikipedia link to the
Right, yeah, yeah, or you can watch this video and get a recap.
Right,
So,
exactly, but, yeah, I think it's kinda sad this is our last of the season, our last video of the season about, Doctor Who. Well, not about Doctor Who, but about the 15th Doctor.
yeah, about the 15th Doctor season 1.
Yes. So, I mean, we're gonna have to now go back now and do, like, rewatches because we're not gonna put out Doctor Who content? What?
Right?
But, yeah, that's pretty much everything, and, if you watched this season or an episode or have any opinions on Doctor Who in general of the 60 years of history, let us know in the comments. You can find us also on Instagram or TikTok. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, we would, and we appreciate if you like this video and subscribe to our channel so you get all of the mayhem all of the time and you won't miss out on the craziness.
Thank you for watching.